Hey, what's up guys? So last week I posted a video on 6 foods that can be regularly consumed in order to support your body's natural testosterone production. And so in this week's video, essentially what I wanted to do is kind of make a video on the flip side of that coin and talk about some foods that can actually hinder testosterone production. So let's go ahead and dive right in. A huge thanks to Let's Get Checked for sponsoring this video. Hey, what's up guys? My name is Zach and welcome to Nutrition Library, where we take an evidence-based approach to nutrition and supplementation. If you haven't already, do me a huge favor and hit the red subscribe button that's below this video so you can stay up to date with all of our future content. Thank you so much. Now, the first food on our list today is actually not a specific food, but is actually more of a specific eating pattern, and that is simply just eating too much. Now, by far, one of the greatest risk factors when it comes to food and testosterone is simply obesity. Obesity is one of the greatest risk factors for almost every chronic disease, and that also applies to chronically low testosterone as well. Now, typically speaking, outside of some very, very specific outlying situations, the single factor by far when it comes to obesity is just simply eating more food than you're expending. And so one of the greatest things that you can do for just overall health as well as testicular function and testosterone production, if you are overweight, is just to simply lose weight. Now, people typically like to make this extremely complicated, but it is not at all. You don't have to go keto, you don't have to go low carb, you don't have to go low fat, you don't have to do intermittent fasting. Simply all you have to do is eat less food than you're using. Now, the second food on our list today is also more of an eating pattern than it is a specific food, but it is actually eating too little. Now, this might seem somewhat contradictory to my first point. However, if you'll stick with me, I can kind of tease this out a little bit. When you initially go into a hypocaloric state, when you are trying to lose weight, typically you will experience some level of improvement in testicular function as well as just overall hormonal status. However, there does appear to be two specific situations in which there is a point of diminishing return, and that is one, either by you reaching your optimal state of leanness or your optimal body weight, and then continuing to diet beyond that point. And then two is just staying in a hypocaloric state for just too long. Now, for instance, if you are, say, 5 pounds overweight, it may only take you about 2 weeks to lose that kind of weight. And so during that time, you may again experience some level of improvement in hormonal status. However, once you do get to your optimal body weight and then kind of continue to stay in a hypocaloric state, maybe in order to kind of get lean for the beach or something of that nature, you typically will experience a drop in hormonal status after that point, simply because you're putting your body under an undue amount of stress. So in this situation, it's just really important to kind of understand what your personal optimal body weight is and where you feel best, and what weight you feel best at, and then just be mindful to stick to that body weight. Now, let's say that you are 50 pounds overweight and you decide to kind of go on a weight loss journey. It may take you over a year to lose that kind of weight. And again, in this specific scenario, you may experience some level of improvement in hormonal status in the first several weeks of your weight loss journey. However, once you do stay in a hypocaloric state for an extended period of time, again, it kind of just puts your body in an extremely stressful state. And when your body experiences that type of level of stress, it typically will begin to lower the production of sex hormones. And so in this specific situation, I do think it is really important to prioritize taking 1 or 2 days off of your diet per week, and then even taking an entire week off every couple of months or so, just to give your body a break and to allow it to kind of normalize to some degree. Now, the next food on our list today is is actually a food and is our first specific food on our list today, and that is plant oils, and more specifically omega-6 polyunsaturated fats from seed oils. Now, the primary reason that you want to avoid seed oils is because of their extremely high content of omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids. Now, to be fair to omega-6 fats, your body actually does need them to some degree in order to stimulate proper inflammation and immune response in the body. However, the typical American diet contains far too many omega-6 fatty acids in comparison to omega-3 fatty acids. And now typically you want an even ratio of omega-3 fats to omega-6 fats. However, the typical American diet roughly contains usually 20 times the amount of omega-6 when compared to omega-3. And the reason this is a bad thing is that omega-6 fats are kind of like the primary building block for pro-inflammatory cytokines in the body, whereas the omega-3 fatty acids are the primary building block for anti-inflammatory cytokines in the body. And so typically you want an even ratio of these specific cytokines to kind of properly balance out immune function. And when you habitually consume omega-6 fats in a higher ratio than omega-3 fats, it essentially leads to heightened levels of neural inflammation, which can have a negative impact on the HPG axis and increase prolactin levels and inhibit gonadotropic releasing hormone and lower luteinizing hormone, which all have a negative impact on testosterone production. Now, the simplest way to improve this ratio is just to simply cut out every single seed oil in your diet. And these would include things like soybean oil, canola oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, as well as pretty much anything that comes from a seed specifically. Now, if you are somewhat bent on consuming plant oils, I would opt for things like olive oil and avocado oil, as well as coconut oil and palm oil. However, one of the best things that you can do is just to simply prioritize animal fats, which are going to have a much better ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fats in them. Now, the second reason that you want to avoid seed oils is because of how quickly they go rancid. And this is actually a bigger deal than their specific polyunsaturated fat content. And that is because polyunsaturated fats, because your body does need them, they aren't inherently bad. However, the issue with polyunsaturated fats from the seed oils specifically is because of how quickly they go rancid. Now, the difference here is that a rancid and oxidized polyunsaturated fat doesn't actually support your body's natural inflammatory response, but actually induces inflammation in and of itself because of the inherent toxicity of that polyunsaturated fat. And the reason this is bad for testosterone production is that these toxic oils, once they enter into the body, get distributed somewhat universally throughout the body, and they are extremely toxic to testicular function and pretty much just destroy normal bodily function just in general. Now, the next reason that you want to avoid seed oils, as well as to some degree plant oils, is that they just simply don't contain any cholesterol. So when you increase the amount of fat, and specifically plant fats, into your diet, you are inherently going to have to lower the amount of animal fats that are in your diet. And when you do this, you are essentially going to be cutting out your cholesterol sources as well, because all of your dietary cholesterol comes from animal fats. Now, the reason this is detrimental is that cholesterol is the primary building block for sex hormones in the body. And so there is an argument to be made that decreasing cholesterol doesn't have any impact on blood levels of cholesterol, which is to some degree somewhat true. However, what most people don't realize is that your body, when you don't get enough cholesterol through your diet, your liver will actually begin to create cholesterol, and this is somewhat of a stressful process for the liver. And so by getting more dietary cholesterol through food sources, you can theoretically kind of take some of that stress off of the liver and allow it to more efficiently produce sex hormones. Now, again, I do think it is worth noting here that polyunsaturated fats aren't inherently bad. However, we typically do consume them in far above quantities than we need to, and again, because they go rancid so quickly, they just aren't stable, and it's difficult to get healthy polyunsaturated fats unless they are coming from specifically animal sources, which are inherently more stable because of their saturated fat content as well. Now, the next food on our list today is again more of a class of foods, and that is grains. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard this story repeated over and over again, and so what I want to specifically do in this video is dive into the specifics of some extremely popular grains and kind of outline why they're so detrimental to not just testosterone, but also just overall androgen status as well. And now, unfortunately, the first one on our list today is the ever beloved and loved bodybuilding grain, oats. Now, the reason oats are on our list today is because of a little known fiber that they contain in super high quantities known as beta-glucan. Now, the reason beta-glucan lowers testosterone levels is because it actually inhibits your liver's ability to create cholesterol. And again, cholesterol being the primary building block for testosterone in the body, when you inhibit its production in the body, you're going to naturally decrease the level of subsequent sex hormones as well. Now, this study in particular showed that a patented beta-glucan extract, quote, effectively suppressed the serum levels of testosterone and DHT and downregulated aromatase, estradiol, and the expression of the androgen receptor as well. And there's actually some studies in rats as well that also noted just overall testicular atrophy from beta-glucan supplementation as well. And now, this may not be of practical relevance for occasional oat use. However, it is worth noting that oats have a ton of beta-glucan in them, and so I definitely wouldn't make oats a primary daily staple in my diet. Now, the next beloved grain on our list today is wheat, and that is because of the well-known protein that wheat contains known as gluten. Now, gluten is particularly harmful for those that have celiac disease. However, even in those that don't have celiac disease and are maybe gluten intolerant or may just have some level of sensitivity to gluten, gluten typically will cause a fairly potent inflammatory response, and specifically a neural inflammatory response, which has the tendency to do one primary thing, which is to increase prolactin and again kind of start this whole cascade of events that happens to eventually suppress testosterone levels. And the second thing to note here is that gluten also seems to just have an overall anti-androgenic effect in the body, and also seems to inhibit the conversion of testosterone into its more potent androgen form known as DHT. And in this study in particular, they found that the most striking endocrine findings in untreated celiacs were increased plasma testosterone, free testosterone index, reduced dihydrotestosterone, testosterone's potent peripheral metabolite, and raised serum luteinizing hormone, a pattern of abnormalities indicative of androgen resistance. Now, I do think this is extremely interesting because this study did show that gluten increased typically all the markers that you want increased. However, it does look like the increases in testosterone are essentially coming from a backlog and a prevention of testosterone being converted into DHT. And so, again, DHT being the more potent androgen, you really don't want this to happen, and it essentially looks like gluten is preventing this conversion from happening. And essentially what the researchers in this paper were saying is that it's causing kind of overall androgen resistance. Now, this may not have practical significance to those that aren't gluten sensitive. However, it is something to keep in mind. Now, the last grain on our list is the ever beloved bodybuilding favorite, brown rice. And the reason rice is on our list today is, like gluten, it has also been shown to inhibit the enzyme 5-alpha reductase, which also, again, will prevent the conversion of testosterone into DHT. Now, the interesting thing here is that it has been shown to actually be comparable to some of the reference drugs that are medically used to inhibit 5-alpha reductase for the purpose of benign prostate hyperplasia. Now, it's also worth noting here that it appears that the ability of rice to inhibit 5-alpha reductase taste is actually specific to the bran of the rice, and so there may not be as much of a potential of a white rice to do this. And so if you are going to consume rice, I would opt for things like white rice. However, I do think it is safe to say that brown rice should somewhat be avoided, and at the very least shouldn't be a staple in the diet. Now, on top of all of this, most every single grain has also been shown to be extremely high in things like phytic acid and lectins, as well as some other gluten-like proteins that are also found in some gluten-free grains. And so all in all, grains do appear to be extremely inflammatory and unnecessarily inflammatory, especially for individuals that are regularly exercising and are already putting their bodies through an inflammatory process like exercise. And they also seem to inhibit the absorption of several minerals that seem to be extremely critical for proper testosterone production. And so overall, grains just really don't have much going for them outside of the fact that they are a somewhat convenient source of carbohydrates to help with glycogen resynthesis after a workout. Now, if you're looking for natural ways to increase testosterone levels, one of the first steps is going to be actually getting a complete hormone profile done. Everyone's hormones are at a completely different place, and so there just really isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to optimizing your hormone profile. Some guys have low testosterone coupled with high prolactin and low estrogen, while others have normal testosterone levels but have high estrogen and low free testosterone. And so the approach that is effective for one guy may actually be detrimental to another. And so if you haven't had your hormone profile checked yet, I would highly recommend looking into my friends over at Let's Get Checked. They have one of the most comprehensive tests on the market, and what's more is that you can actually do it at home. Once you've purchased your test, they'll actually send you your test to your doorstep, where you will collect your sample at home and send it back, and within a few days you'll get your results through their online portal, along with a free consultation with a practitioner that will walk you through your personal results. Now, this is a super sweet deal, so make sure to check out the link in the description down below for 30% off of your test. But other than that, guys, if you're looking for more proven supplements that can be used to safely increase testosterone levels, make sure to check out the free guide that I have on my website, as well as the links to my favorite ashwagandha supplement. However, I do think that is it for today's video. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much.